Many Americans assume that aristocracy is something this country rejected at its founding, that it was swept away by the American Revolution, that inherited power gave way to merit, institutions, and ideology. But that assumption doesn't hold up very well. Many of the founders themselves belonged to established regional elites, families rooted in land, lineage, and long-standing social authority. And while the United States has passed through many ideological conflicts and cultural shifts, American aristocracy did not disappear. In many cases, it fragmented, went feral, and reappeared later in places our institutions stopped looking. American aristocracy isn't dead, it's largely invisible, and it survives in families, not offices. This series traces American history through families, to understand where aristocracy actually comes from, how it survives without titles, and what that means for us today. Most history tracks power through institutions, through offices and formal authority, governors, judges, legislatures, presidents. Those things matter, but they aren't the whole story. Institutions are best understood as containers for power, not power itself. If we want to understand what survives when institutions weaken or fail, we have to look somewhere else. We have to look at land ownership, at family formation, at fertility, at religion, at marriage patterns, at inheritance and continuity across generations. When history focuses only on institutions, it often misses what outlasts them, and when institutions stop reproducing themselves, socially or biologically, something else always does. A common mistake is assuming that early American elites either ruled indefinitely or vanished entirely. Neither is really true. Take the Puritans. They built extraordinarily durable institutions, schools, churches, courts, and bureaucratic systems that shaped American life for centuries. Those institutions endured, but Puritan families as a group did not. Don't misunderstand, there are still many families that descend from the Puritans. They just don't exist as a self-aware or cohesive group. By the 19th century, many New England elite families were no longer reproducing at replacement levels. They married later, they had fewer children, they increasingly prioritized education, office, and institutional success over family expansion. Other families moved in to fill the gap left in the institutions the Puritan aristocracy built. In other words, the structure survived, but the people thinned. Now contrast that with what's happening along the Appalachian frontier. Here, institutions are weak or distant, but families were strong. Land passed through their kin networks, marriage happened at a younger age, fertility remained high. These communities were not producing large numbers of office holders or institutional leaders. They were producing people. They weren't ruling states, they were reproducing populations. That distinction turns out to matter a great deal. When elites stop reproducing biologically, power doesn't vanish. It moves, sometimes downward, sometimes outward, sometimes into professions or frontier regions or private life. They adapted. Some married into new populations, some left institutional roles, some withdrew from public authority altogether. In doing so, they became something different. The way I'm using feral doesn't mean savage, it means removed from domestication, removed from formal institutional control, removed from titles and offices, left to operate through family, land, habit, and long memory. What survived wasn't rank. What survived were patterns, ways of marrying, ways of passing property, ways of worshiping God, and ways of educating children, ways of thinking about time and inheritance. These things don't require aristocratic titles. They require families. Looking at American history this way changes how the present starts to make sense. It helps explain why some institutions feel hollow, why certain elites feel disconnected from continuity, and why some populations quietly expand while others contract. History doesn't reset cleanly. When a ruling class loses legitimacy or coherence, it doesn't evaporate. It fragments. Some lines fail, some adapt, some persist quietly outside of the spotlight. Over time, those that endure reappear, not necessarily as rulers, but as lineages. That isn't nostalgia, it's an attempt to notice patterns that standard narratives tend to overlook. American aristocracy did not end in the United States. It changed form, it became harder to see, and in many cases it learned how to survive without formal titles.